I'll just take a minute to close the windows here because there's a lot of noise outside. 1 second, please. Sorry about that. So we're on Daf Lamed Aleph. And the sugya is mamash on a tangent. We're going into Kamle B'Drabmine, and the last thing we spoke about is that the Torah, in order to have this Torah of the money and Misa and Mammon, it has to be dafka simultaneously. The Techib was incurred upon him simultaneously. And that was how the Gemara starts. Guf Amr Rav Chisda, Moed Rav Nechoni ben Akana B'Gon of Chelbo Shel Chaver V'Achalo Shel Chayiv Shekvar Neschai B'Gneva Kodem Shavu L'Deis Chelev. A person stole Chelev and he ate it. So the stealing is behind him money, and the eating the chaylev is behind him kares. Even though the one he talks about the Mechoni ben Akana, it's not the main subject. This Yesod of Chisda is saying is that it has to be simultaneous. You could have said in the Rabbanan also, but Yesod is that even though there should have been a Torah come b'Dramine, but since it didn't come simultaneously because the thief of the money came as soon as he stole it, and he's not chayiv the kares until he eats it. So he's not. There's no Torah coming b'Drabine because it wasn't simultaneous. That was a Chisda's point yesterday, and the Gemara went into the application of that to Zor Shachal Truma. That also over there it shouldn't be simultaneous. That was yesterday's sugya. But now the Gemara is opening this up for a window on itself. If Chisda said this is so, it has to be simultaneous in order to be pater. Lema pliga de Rabbi Yovan. Rav Chisda seems to argue on Rabbi Yovan, who seems to say something different. Am Rabbi Yovan. This case seems to be the same thing, that it's not simultaneous. The person threw an arrow. The arrow has nothing to do with the Chi of Shabbos. Shabbos could have been a stone also. But the point is that they talked about an arrow because on the way it's going to also be mazik. So someone threw an arrow and a way that he would have been chayiv for Shabbos, 4 amas. It could have been more than 4 amas. But he threw something, at least 4 amas, and it landed, and he's chayiv. There's a chi of Shabbos over there. He was maver Abba Amas Pashus Zorik Abba Amas Pashus Arabim. But on the way, it went through a garment and it tore it. Karashivan Balichaso, he tore some silk, and no difference, but he tore some garment on the way. So there's a chi of Shabbos for throwing Dalet Amas, and there's a chi of Mammon for tearing a garment. So you might say that. So the question is, is it going to be pater for the money? And the point is, did it come simultaneously or not? So the garment was torn on the way before it landed, and then it landed. So the Chi of Shabbos goes earlier, it goes later. The Chi of Shabbos only when it lands, and the money, the liability for the money was incurred when it tore through the garment. Before, there's no killing over here. It's before chayiv Shabbos, before it landed, and it's chayiv for.
That would mean that it had to happen within the 4 hours.
No difference. It's no difference because even if it was 20 amos, I mean, it does not chayiv until it lands. You have to have an akira on something, no matter how much it was. At least one had it been 10 amos, 20 amos.
He's still not chayiv
right for Shabbos until it lands, but he's chayiv for tearing it as soon as it tore it. So simultaneously. So we would have thought that he's not yet pater. Would have thought that he's chayiv because it was not simultaneous. It means a point of because we understand.
It's simultaneous.
And the question is, why is it simultaneous? The Rabbi is saying that is called simultaneous. So Rav Chisda said that in his case, he said the Yesod that has to be simultaneous in order to be pater. And if it's not simultaneous, it's chayiv. Rabbi seems to argue because he says, I'll show you this case. Also, I agree that it has to be simultaneous, but it is simultaneous. Shakira, Sarach HaNachahi. Even though the completion of the Chilul Shabbos didn't happen until the arrow landed, but the fact that he's not chayiv for the throwing only if you had an also it had to be uprooted, you had to throw it. So the throwing is also considered part of the act, and that's enough to be considered simultaneous. Means don't. Rabbi Yavin is saying that don't look at simultaneous only if the actual chiyuv, the end of the chilul Shabbos, is together with Gneva, with the money. That's called simultaneous. Even if the chiyuv of Shabbos doesn't come until it lands, but since in order to get this chiyuv Shabbos, one of the ingredients was that also you had to throw it, you had to have an akira. That's enough to be considered. That's a long ma'aseh. The ma'aseh is one long ma'aseh. It's not only the end when it lands, and that's when the chiyuv Shabbos is activated. The whole act that included the akira is also considered the act of chilul Shabbos, and therefore it is considered simultaneous.
Didn't we have the dog who grabs it in its mouth and it's about to?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I think a little
If
bit.
somebody will go ahead and.
Of course, you have to have an akira and an anacha. Sure, you have to have both. If it didn't have an anacha,
somebody went and grabbed the.
So there was no anacha, so then he's not chayiv Shabbos. True, but here there was an akira, there was an anacha. We just want to talk about where what was the act? What was the act?
We can look back
And the whole akira was also part of that. Also, it's true. Akira without the anacha is not going to be chayiv. You have to have the anacha. But once you have the anacha, but it's also only chayiv because there was an akira also. So that whole thing is all called the act of the chilul Shabbos, and that's not to be considered if any money penalty was incurred during that whole akira anacha act. That's enough to be considered simultaneous.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Why not?
We're saying that since it's going to have a hanacha, so he's chayiv while it's in the air because he did the akira.
Not since it can have anacha. When it has an after it had akira and anacha, so it's a chiyuv Shabbos. So where was the act of the chilul Shabbos? The whole akira and anacha, not just when it landed. That's when he incurred the penalty. It's true. He's only chayiv misa.
He's only chayiv once it
lands. Yes, but now you want to know where was the act of that? Not so he's going to say a chiddush, and it's not only when the punishment will take effect that he's the liability takes effect that now he was Machal Shabbos. The whole act which brought to the liability of Chilul Shabbos is also enough to be considered one big act, and therefore, if money was incurred, some monetary liability was incurred during that whole act, that's also included in Kamei B'Drabmineh. And the Gemara sees it's a chiddush. You're not saying it's not a chiddush. And the more thinks that Rav Chisda is arguing because Rav Chisda also had such a case because he stole and he ate, and in order to eat it, he stole it. He stole it in order to eat it. He didn't have this chayla. He had to steal it in order to eat it. Yeah. So why don't you look at it as one big act? And the chayla, and it's true that the Geneva happened before he got to the chiyuv kares of eating it, but that Geneva, that whole stealing, should also be considered part of the chiyuv kares because he wasn't able to eat it unless he stole it first. That's what the Gemara is asking. He had to pick it up in order to eat it. So when he picked it up, he was stealing, but that was already part of the chiyuv of kares also because that was necessary in order to be able to eat it eventually.
So we're trying to push off that whole thing we did yesterday about that he shoved it in his throat.
No. I mean, we're not going into all. We can forget about all that. That was yesterday's sugya. It's true. Yesterday,
but there we tried so hard to make it simultaneous, and now it seems like we're saying, "Oh no, the whole act of stealing it, and that is also one act."
So we can go back to each case and see if it'll be included in this after you finish the sugya. But yesterday we took Rav Chisda, the yellow. We took Rav Chisda to be a given, and now we're asking if Rav Chisda is arguing Abu Yavin because Abu Yavin holds that that's also called simultaneous. You can go back to yesterday's also. Also the same thing, but now we're just taking these things. So that's the most kasha. That according to that says that since it was a necessity, akira tzarach hanacha, as we used to say that the whole act of one big act of Shabbos, so the whole act of stealing, picking it up in order to eat it, the chaylev was also a big act, and it should be part of it also. It says two different. What's the over there by Shabbos, it's inherently part of the act. The akira, picking up something in order to throwing it, and it lands, that whole act is inherently part of the chilul Shabbos because you can't be chai for Shabbos by the thing just landing without having picked it up. And that's two factors. You have to have akira and anacha. So that's why it's all considered one big act. But over here, it's possible theoretically to eat chaylev without having picked it up and stolen and that whole thing. If he wanted to, he could have bent over and eaten it. It means he could have gone over to the chaylev, wherever it is, and put his mouth to it. He didn't have to pick it up. It's not inherently part of, even technically, the Gemara is saying, not only halachically, but even technically, it's not necessary to even have had that ingredient in order to eat chaylev. Chaylev has nothing to do, eating chaylev has nothing to do with picking it up. So therefore, that's not considered part of the act, and everybody agrees to each other that it has to be so simultaneous, and it's only considered, this thing about Bavin is only when it's one big act, because from beginning to end, the whole thing was necessary inherently in order to come to that chiyuv of Shabbos. But over here, that in order to eat chaylev, he doesn't have to pick it up necessarily. It's not considered one big act, and everybody agrees with each other. Inami, another reason why it's different between Rav Chisda and Rav Ravin, that by the case of the throwing the arrow over there, once he lets go of it, he can't retract it anymore. It's irretractable, irrevocable. So over there, that's a reason why we say that since you have to have an akira and anafa, you have to have both ingredients, and you did it, you're already into the action so much that you can't retract. Once you threw it and you started the akira, the anafa is going to happen. So that's the reason why the akira is nitpal. Of course, you have to go with the yesod that the Shabbos has to have both akira and anafa, and once you did that, it's part of the act, cannot retract it anymore. But even if theoretically you would have to pick it up in order to, I picked it up, but I might not eat it still. So even if you would say that it is considered one big act, the picking up and the eating, not like the first Gemara's point that he could have eaten it without picking it up, even if he would put it all to one package deal, that he has to pick it up in order to eat it, that's true, but that's because he picked it up. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to eat it. So since it's retractable, so then it's not considered one big act. Two differences why Rabbi Chisda would be true. Rabbi Yavin could agree to Rabbi Chisda in the case of stealing and eating, stealing the chaylev and eating it, it's not going to be considered simultaneous because the stealing part is not considered nitpal to the of eating the chaylev. My ika bein high lishna l'high lishna. There were two truths we just said. These two greens over here. One was that it's if the akira is necessary, and by the eating the chaylev, it wasn't necessary to pick it up. That was the first test. Second test was if it's retractable or not. Is there any difference between these two truths? My ika bein high lishna l'high lishna. There's a difference. Ika bein high yomar v'saken b'shis rabim v'kor shivan b'lichaso. Not the case of throwing an arrow, but carrying a knife. That means just use a knife because an arrow is something that you shoot, and now we're talking about something you're not shooting. He's doing a chol Shabbos, and he moved it, he picked it up and walked Dalet Amos in B'shis Rabbim on Shabbos in the way that it's chai for chol Shabbos. He picked it up and he put it down, picked up the knife and walked with the Dalet Amos and put it down. On the way that he was walking, he also tore garments with the knife. So here, are you going to say that the whole act is considered a chil Shabbos, and therefore he's potter? You say that the same way that by the throwing the arrow, you say that the whole act is considered a chil Shabbos because he needed akira. He also needed akira. He wouldn't be fine for putting down the knife after the alamas, only if you picked it up. If the yesod is going to be that if it was impossible to have the hanacha without the akira, you need the hanacha to be akira. Act of Chil Shabbos, here also, in order to, this whole act is one big act, picking up a knife, walking out, putting it down, that's one big act of Chil Shabbos, and if he did something that incurred a monetary penalty on the way, so he's potter because it was an act, it's called simultaneous. But if you say that it's only because it's irrevocable, the point is that by the arrow, it also has to be that it's irrevocable because once he threw it, he can't get it back anymore. Here, that he's walking with the knife, he can stop at any time. So he picked it up and he started walking down the Amos on the way, and he finished. And on the way, he cut something. But the whole act is not considered a chil Shabbos because he could have stopped if he wanted to. It's true.
It's not like an arrow.
It's not like an arrow. The arrow is irrevocable, but here he can stop at any time. He's walking, he can stop at any time. So even though it's true that the hakira is part of the whole Maisa, but since he could have stopped in the middle, so that doesn't make it nitpal, and here it would be considered that it did not come simultaneously because the Shabbos, you only look at the hanocha alone, and he tore the garment before he finished the act, before he got the penalty of misa for chil Shabbos. So it would be high for the money. So far the Gemara finished. So far this first point, and we have Rav Chisda, we have Rav Ravin, and the Gemara comes out. Everybody agrees to each other. And the point was what's the criteria of Rav Ravin to say that it's one long ma'isa? The whole thing is considered a chil Shabbos, and he'd be potter because this is considered simultaneous. Either the point is because yav shel nacha below akira, whenever it's necessary to have the akira also, so that's considered one long act. Maybe you also have to have that it should be irrevocable in order to be considered.
You don't see the arrow land.
It has to land. Yeah, you shot it, but eventually it landed.
You don't know. What if you don't see it?
Well, yeah, but what happened? Eventually it landed. Even something might have gotten burnt on the way. If it got burnt on the way, you never, like what Lev Yaakov said before, if a dog might have taken it out of its course or it got burned. So then you're right. But the case would be that you do know that there was anacha, and now we just have to look back in retrospect, looking back. So when did that act of chilul Shabbos started? It started from the time that he picked it up and he shot it, and therefore that whole act might be considered chilul Shabbos, and anything that during that is considered something because the money, the monetary during the time that he was doing the misa.
Excuse me, the last listener where he's walking with the knife and he has the option to stop.
Right.
So we simultaneous and he would be high.
Right.
Who's that like?
We're saying there's no machlokas. We're saying everybody agrees to each other. But between the two understandings of Rabbi Oven, right? The two greens and the blue.
It has to be simultaneous, and this would be a case where it's not.
Right. Rabbi Oven also agrees that it's simultaneous, but he says this is considered one long act. And the Gemara says two possibilities. When does he consider this one long act? As long as it's necessary. If the beginning wasn't necessary to come to the end, like Kirat Sarach Hanacha, and sometimes you don't have that, like you don't have to pick something up in order to eat it. And then the Gemara said another possibility is only if it's irrevocable. Then it's considered one big act.
Okay.
The Gemara now opens up a window on this new yisod that we spoke about. Rabbi Oven. Gufa.
Yeah.
Gufa. Rabbi Oven Azor Case Mitchila Sabala So Far Abba Karishuam Balichosa Potter Shakira Sarach Hanachi. But has learned that if somebody threw an arrow on Shabbos in a way that is going to be chayiv for throwing Arba Amas, on the way he tore some garment, so he's potter because Akira Sarach Hanacha, as the Gemara just explained, maybe because Akira Sarach Hanacha or because it's irrevocable. The whole Gemara talking about the irrevocable pshat that says that it's only potter if you threw something, you couldn't stop it on the way. We're going with the first pshat, the first to the green. That as long as it's Yav Shel Anacha B'lo Akira, that's enough reason to be potter. The whole thing, that's how Gemara is going to be going with that case now. So we're opening up a window on this and asking kashas. Maser V'Abeba Bar Abaye. A kasha.
They say it as Akira.
So yes, right. So on this
To be
yisod,
high, that's the point.
to be in order to be potter, if it's Akira Sarach Hanacha.
I mean, on Shabbos, to be high of whatever you're doing, that's Mechal Shabbos.
Yes, you have to have Akira also. You have to have an Akira also.
Yeah.
And Hanacha said then the whole thing is considered one long. Incurred a penalty during the time because it came simultaneously. From what is this going to be? Says that it's a Tosefta. This is a brisa. Moshe Rabbi Bar from a Tosefta. I'm going to kiss for Shabbos. There's two cases over here. There's a case that is going to say that it is commonly with Rabbi, and one is going to say potter, the red and the pink and the blue. Ratio is I'm going to kiss for Shabbos. Chayiv. Shekvan is chayiv b'geneva. According to Shabbos is a skila. I'm sorry.
When we're saying a gonav, are we talking not in Rosh Hashanah or?
So let's get the case. Someone went into somebody else's courtyard and he stole a wallet on Shabbos, and he carried it out.
And he carried it out.
He carried it out. So it's Chil Shabbos over there. So he also stole, and he also was Mechal Shabbos.
Right.
So what do you say? Is he potter from the money?
Yeah, there was $100,000 in that case.
$100,000, and he was Mechal Shabbos. I think that if $100,000 is still there, there's no question. He has to give the same thing back that he gave to. But if he spent it already, he ate it. He had a big lunch that thing. So does he have to pay? So the question is about Kamle Bid Rabbi because he stole this money issue over here, and also Chil Shabbos because he into Rishus Rabbin, carrying from Rishus Yachad to Shabbos, even if it was just the transition from the Rishus to the Rishus Rabbin makes that it should be Chayiv for Shabbos, and he stole. So it says in this case, be Chayiv for the money. It was not simultaneous. Shekvar is Chayiv. In the pink stone, I'm not blue. Okay, that's the beginning of the ratio. That's the first case. In this case, he is chayiv. I'm sorry that the word skila should be part of the ratio.
Because it's not simultaneous, they're saying.
Right, not simultaneous. Because first he stole, and then he's mechal Shabbos. And we'll say simple. The case is that he picked it up. He picked a gon of kiss Shabbos means he picked it up. But one of the kinyanim is hagbah. You pick something up, even if he's in the courtyard, the house of the robbed party. He picked up his wallet with the intention of stealing it. He stole it, even though he's still inside. Ruvain is inside Shimon's estate. He picks up a wallet in order to steal it. He already acquired it. He acquired it. He did a very geneva. So he's chayiv for the money, and he's not chayiv for Shabbos until he gets out to Rishus Rabbin. So two different things. So it's not simultaneous. So he's chayiv. But seifa, if he was dragging it out, and dragging it out means he didn't make a kinyan. Now we're going a little bit into the halachas of kinyanim, how to acquire something. One kinyan is called hagbah. One kinyan is called mashicha. Hagbah means you pick it up. Mashicha means you don't pick it up. You just pull it. You pull it Dalit Amos. I'm not sure of Dalit Amos. I forgot how much you have to pull it. I take that back. I don't know, but you have to pull it. You have to pull it.
Okay.
So here it says that
But here does Megorah mean that he
Dragged.
did he had intention to steal it?
yeah, he's stealing it, but
He's stealing it, but
yeah,
he's dragging.
he's dragging it,
He's
and
like, oh, that way people might not see that he's.
could be it was a big package. We'll see. If it was a pretty heavy,
Whatever,
gold and
okay.
stuff. He had a whole thing over there.
Well,
So he's huh?
A keys.
A kiss, you're right. Okay, but the Gemara says later on it could be a big kiss. It might be a big pouch.
Yeah.
But anyway, it says that he's dragging it out. So he didn't steal it yet. He's in the act of stealing, but he didn't do it yet. He didn't steal until it becomes acquired to him. So if he didn't pick it up in a way that he stole right away, but he was dragging it out of the domain of the one that he's robbing, Potter, then it is going to be Potter because Kamli Bidrav Minei. Shabbat Yisra Shabbos V'Gnei, but Bon Kechad, because both of them came simultaneously. When does he incur the penalty of Shabbos? When he gets out to Rishus HaRabim. When he crosses the line, he gets the pouch out. That's when he.
Yeah, but I don't get that. If he thinks that he's stealing,
He is stealing. Yeah.
he is stealing, and he's dragging. And I thought dragging is also a way of.
Yes, but not
acquiring.
inside. Yeah, but not inside of that's it, right? But not inside the rishus of somebody else's rishus. If I drag
You can
something,
drag it 10 almost.
right? Let's say not enough. Some nice people making kinyanim. He's making a transaction, and you come into his chutzner and you want to buy something, and you want to own it. You want to make acquisition. If you pick it up, so then you acquire it even in the rishus of the seller.
So
But if you're dragging it, you don't get it until you get out.
until you get out, so now it's simultaneous. Okay.
So therefore, the simultaneous over here because he didn't get the kinyan gneva didn't happen until he got out, and the Shabbos also he's not chayav Shabbos until he got out, and therefore it's simultaneous. That's the brisa that's quoted. The ratio is that it was not simultaneous because he picked it up, and the safe is that it was simultaneously because he dragged it out. And he's not. Both of them come the same.
So I don't understand the Macy. It seems like this is all going according to the principles we have.
The Gemara is asking on the ratio. The ratio was that he picked it up, and he's not yet. He's chayv for Gneva, he's not chayv for Shabbos. But the Gemara is asking, according to your principle, that by Shabbos, Akiva Tzarech Hanocha. So here he picked it up, and he's not chayv for Shabbos until
it's two parts.
It's 2 parts.
And he
Even though
did the Akira.
right. No, it is revocable. That's Tyson say here. You go to irrevocable. It's revocable here. It wouldn't be in the contract.
Yeah.
But if you forget about that, the first error is that that if it's a tzarech hanacha, so it's not chayiv only if you picked it up and put it down. Just putting it down without picking it up wouldn't have made him chayiv. So this case in the ratio, we picked it up means he stole it. Then it's true the chiyuv Shabbos doesn't come until he eventually puts it down. But since what? Hey, yeah, but he's doing. He's going to put it down outside. He's going to be chayiv misa for that. He's also stealing a bunch of things. He's not. He's not religious enough.
In other words, I don't see that they're asking the question you're asking.
Yeah, well, so you should say in the ratio that when he picked it up, he should be potter because it's necessary to pick it up in order to carry it out. That's by Shabbos. By Shabbos, let's say That's akiva tzarech hanacha, hagbo tzarech hatzah. That's the same thing. That hagbo is the akiva, and hatzah means down. That's Shabbos. So if you say that. This is the whole act. It's called the Chil Shabbos. Not only when he picked it up, that's the beginning. That's the Akira. He picked it up inside the domain of the one that he's robbing. That's already the Akira. Gets it out. Eventually puts it down. So that was the Hanacha. Big act of Chil Shabbos. And if it caused him all, that also was his penalty, incurred his penalty of stealing. As soon as he picked it up, he stole. And it's also the beginning of his Chil Shabbos. So you should say that it's one big act, then he should be potter. How come in the ratio says that he's chayiv? So the Gemara's going to try. The Gemara's going to have to figure it out. First, the Gemara tries to make that it should not be a case where it's not going to be simultaneous. He picked it up. He picked it to take it out. Okay, maybe we'll, okay. So the Gemara it says that because when he picked it up, he said it's not considered the beginning of the Chol Shabbos because he didn't intend that this should now be
the was not a kinyan.
It was a kinyan of Geneva.
The Hagba was a kinyan
Of Geneva. He stole it, right? Then he stole it.
But it wasn't the
Akira to get the Shabbos because he didn't intend to take it out. He just wanted to put it someplace within the domain. So he stole it. Yes. I'm sorry.
We don't have the Gemara anymore. The daf is missing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me get it on again.
and he changed his mind, decided to take it out right.
Let's get technical. Thank you. I'm sorry, Yaakov?
When he changes his mind, decides instead of coming back later, he'll take it now.
Right. He heard
So
the siren
now
go
the-
off now. So he said, I gotta get out of here. Someone saw him, he's going to change his mind. I'll take it now already. Take away. First he was
But
going
he
to,
already stole it. So
Yeah,
now
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
simultaneous,
Yeah.
it's fine.
he stole it. He stole it as soon as he picked it up. But the question was now, I stole it. Should I hide it here or should I take it out now? So as far as taking it out, he first intended to leave it here. And then he decided to take it out, right? Then after a second thought, he said, "Oh, let me get out of here already with it." So that's why the more things that it didn't come simultaneously. The nave happened right away as soon as he picked it up, but the Chil Shabbos doesn't happen until it gets out. So that's the reason why it's high. In this
Well,
case,
that answers the kasha about that it has the two factors.
right? The more thought that a Q, if
Both
you would have picked
factors
it,
happened after he stole it in this case. Both factors of
right? The whole Shabbos
Chil
only happens
Shabbos
after,
only
right?
happened
That the
after he
picking it
stole
up wasn't part of the Chil Shabbos. Usually, when you pick it up in order to take it out, that's the beginning of the Chil Shabbos. That's enough to make Kamle B'Rab. But now it's out. He does want to pick it up. Yeah.
Okay, but I have a question. Did he hide it?
No.
He didn't hide it. So he picked it up so when he picked it up, it was to steal it, and he did steal it.
Yes.
Hide it, and then he decided to be Akira happened.
Oh, that's gonna be much. You can say much in that. So at this point, the Gemara seems to say that he is Chai for Shabbos, but later. That
But later, and if it's already in his hand,
it's in his hand. He picked it up because he wanted
he picked it up and
to
not to go out.
not to go out. That's the most kasha. Not Gemara is saying this Shabbos is not good because not only did you not make that Akira that Hagban in the beginning, not only did you not make that it's not enough to start the Chil Shabbos, it doesn't even make Chil Shabbos at all.
But here the Mikhayev is about Shabbos.
Right.
About
Is he Chai for Shabbos even when he puts it down any place? Is he Chai for Shabbos at all?
Because he had no Akira.
Right. Which we had on the side, it says Shabbos Daf Hey and Daf Chaf. Over there it says Amafana Chafatzim Zabbos Zabbos V'nim L'Chaldeim B'Tzion Pater Shloisal Kiva V'Shanu. If somebody cleans around in the furniture or whatever, and then if he only had intention to take it to the other side of the room, and then he on second thought he took it out, so he had a kira l'maisi, he had a kira in Rosh Hashanah and Hanoch and. But when he picked it up, he had the intention of taking it out. Take it out. The Maisi in Rosh Hashanah put it down in Rosh Hashanah. But since when he picked it up, he didn't do it with the intention of taking it outside. He's part of it because the kira was not with the intention of taking it out. So over here also, if the case will be that he picked it up in order to hide it, he's not Chai for Shabbos at all. Even if eventually he does put it down outside, he's not Chai for Shabbos. He only stole and he didn't do Chil Shabbos at all. So this is, we have to scratch the first terror. It's not good. The first terror is not good. There's a gears here that's a little hard. These here are a little bit hard. Some take out all these words. These words, lo tema manasni, which is us saying back to back again. This terrace is not good. Forget about this terrace. He didn't take it out for the purpose. He didn't pick it up for the purpose of hiding it. As we said in the beginning, he took it out with the purpose of taking it out. He was just saying back to first base. Scratch this. Terrace is not good. You're right that he picked it up in order to take it out.
I only have to one question.
What?
Yeah.
The case stopped that he picked it up in order to take it out, and he took it out. Nothing about hiding it. He doesn't want to take it out.
His feet. That's it.
But he stopped.
Yeah.
So since he stopped, so the Chi of Shabbos only is going to be
When he
starts again. That's a new akira. So he picked it up, he stole it. But that is not the beginning of the Chil Shabbos because the Chil Shabbos only started after he started again. He stopped. He picked it up, he started walking, he stopped, and then he started walking again. So the Chil Shabbos only starts from that time that he starts again. The original time that he started walking is over because he stopped. And therefore, that's going to be the case that it's going to be chayiv for stealing because the two things did not come simultaneously. But the Gemara says, what did he stop for? Amad Lamai, for what purpose did he stop?
I have a good case.
Yes.
Like what I would think of like in a movie. He picks it up and he's going to steal it, and then he hears somebody coming. So before he has a chance, to hide it.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're not on that.
If you then that's not then he's not that the more I scratched that already because if he wanted to hide it, he's not tied for Shabbos at all, even when eventually he takes it out, unless he stops and starts again. But he stole it already, and that's what the Gemara is doing now. That he stopped. If you want a case that he stopped, that's what the Gemara is doing now. Well, let's still go further.
Okay.
And the Gemara wants to know what kind of stopping. It could be either the window or the air conditioner or something. One of them, either to open the windows or to turn on the air conditioner.
I thought it was on. Is it not on?
Oh, if it is, then it's
It's not working.
okay. Maybe it is, but okay, if everybody's comfortable, is good. For what purpose? For what purpose did he stop?
To shut her off.
I know. I'm shutting it off so I can turn it. See if that helps make it work. Okay, I don't know.
Now it's all. Oh, okay.
Now it's
Okay.
on.
For what purpose did this person stop? What happened over here? He picked it up, stole it, with that picking up, and then he started going out with the purpose of going out, and then he stopped, and then he started again. And we're saying that the Chil Shabbos starts when he starts again. Amad Lamai, for what purpose did he stop? Either he just did it in order to adjust it on the shoulder. That package needed a little adjustment to stop. Or chayu, that's normal, and it means that it's continuation of the first picking up, and it would be considered still simultaneous because the whole Chil Shabbos started from the time that he picked it up, and the fact that he stopped on the way to adjust the package doesn't change anything. Ella omid lafush, the case where he stopped in order to rest. The word is still like vayinafash, to rest. He stopped in order to vacation. He's failing if some reason he got tired. I don't know what the case is, but not stop. And therefore, the first time that he picked it up, that's all part of the Chil Shabbos. The Chil Shabbos starts the second time. Okay, that was acts first. He stopped, and then he stopped, and then he started taking stealing from the Chil Shabbos, and it would be chayiv because it was not simultaneous.
The case I was thinking of was that he stole it and he thought he would hide it, and then he heard something. So on his way to going to hide it, he stopped because he heard something, and then he changed his mind. Decided.
I don't know if that's also lakate. That's not called a stop. That's not really called a stop. And but the Gemara says but the Shabbos because he never picked it up with him. Purpose of taking. That's the first. What you said now is the first case. The case that he took it up.
It was just
he
an
picked
interruption, but it wasn't a
It's
stop.
not a stop. It's not
Okay,
like
okay.
and now the Gemara is talking about this, and the Gemara said you're right. If he did stop in order to rest, so then it's a full stop. That the Geneva separated from the Chil Shabbos, but that's such a the prices says differently. Avalakate, my pater, you're saying if he would have not not made a station, he would have just.
Yeah.
So then, a regular case we did not stop. In other words, it would be pater because of your yesod that it's one long act of Chil Shabbos and it's simultaneous. And then why is the Bryce? The Bryce should just give. The Bryce only for back to the Bryce. So we had the case with the one over here. We had the blue case over here. The Bryce found the case that if he's dragging it out, that's the case that it does come simultaneously. It means the one is asking that the Bryce doesn't seem to find a case of simultaneous, only this fancy case that he dragged it out, and the Geneva and the Shabbos happened at the same time. You're saying that normal case also would have been part of it simultaneous. Only in a weird case, the station on.
The question now is adjusting his package.
Then it's nothing. It's not considered as.
That's why is he put?
Meaning that you're saying that he would be put. A regular case, a guy came in, he picked something up, and he took it out. The regular case, he adjusted on the side, doesn't make a difference. He didn't stop. He picked it up in order to steal, and he walked out, and he put it down outside in the Rishus Rabbim. So he would be putter. According to the New Yesod, he would be putter because that's all called one act of Chil Shabbos. So why doesn't it say so? Why is the Bible have to go such a far case where he was picking it out? That's the case because it came simultaneous. According to your Pshat, every case is simultaneous up on the way to rest. So it doesn't say that. That's the concept. Why does it say such a far out case? The Tani Hayim Begar Yosim, you know. the case that it's going to be simultaneous. Water to the end of the state when he dragged it out, everything came simultaneously. Keep the regular case. Keep the same case that he did have boy, he picked it up and he stole it right away. And the Shabbos also was putter. The Shabbos also started right away. He's putter because come every Ramine, and they should have said it's only going to be chayiv for the Gneva if he stopped and made a station on the way. So and because then it's not simultaneous. The Shabbos didn't start yet. He should have said that. They should have said a regular case where he didn't stop, then he'd be putter, even if he did pick it up, not that he just dragged it out. So that terrace is also off. That terrace didn't work. And now we say a new terrace. I didn't have a chance to highlight anything more, so maybe we can go along on the way if we do. Ella Hamani ben Azayu. The Hamar Mahalach Gomadami. The Gemara says, I'll tell you that the reason why it doesn't say regular case not stopping is because Ben Azai is talking. Ben Azai is an opinion we had. Where did we have this? We had it in Masechah Shabbos towards the beginning. It is Shabbos Tafhei Erev and Tzad Ches. So over there, Rabbi Nazai holds every time a person is walking, if you do in slow motion, you'll see that he's really stopping each time. That every step is considered a stop, even though he didn't stop. Means we said before that only if you stop lafush. But Nazai argues he holds that every time a person is walking, he's really stopping and starting, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. And according to him, every time that a person is carrying out of a rishus, he picked up something. In order to take it out to Rosh Hashanah, and he got out to Rosh Hashanah, the keel was only the last step. The last step that was inside the courtyard, that was the step that makes, I'm in Rosh Hashanah, and then the next step he took out of Rosh Hashanah. But the 25 steps that he took till he got to the door, that's not the part of the chiyuv, because each time was as if he stopped. He argues on what we said till now. Till now we said that it's only considered a stop, if you stopped in order to rest. But it's just if you didn't, even if you stopped even casually, whatever, that's not a stop. But Nazai says the opposite, that every step is considered a stop.
And at this point, he stole it to take it out.
Right, back to everything, to scratch everything. Right, he picked it up in order to steal it and to take it out.
And we originally thought the Akira.
It's the first when he picked it up. And I was saying no. Now the Akira is the last step. So the Gneva happened right. We just picked it up. But Shabbos didn't start, not only didn't end, it didn't even start until the last step when he was going out of the door. But the Gemara says, according to that also, therefore the Gemara said, therefore the Brisa says, the only case where I get simultaneously if the Gneva was because it also was the last minute that he dragged it out. But the Gemara says, again, it should have, I can find the case according to Ben Azai also that you can keep, that there was he picked it up and the Gneva happened right away, not the last second when he was dragging it out. I'll also tell the case that you putter. I will zorik my putter. You even according to Ben Azai only says when you're walking, everything's considered a stop. It's a constant stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. But if you throw something, Ben Azai also agrees that there was no stop and go.
As soon as you throw it, that's the beginning of
it. Right. So he could have said a simple case. I will zorik my putter. If he would have picked it up in order to steal it and throw it out, he threw it out. He threw out the goods. He stole something and threw it out the fence. So you'd say that he's putter because Kam David Rabbi. He stole it right away as soon as he picked it up. And it's also part of the Chol Shabbos. It's the beginning of the Chol Shabbos because the Kira was Sarach Hanacha. He does get out of it in case when he's walking, then it doesn't start the Shabbos until the last minute, till the last step. But if you do throw it,
my means why, right?
No, what? I will zorek my. But if you threw it, then what would be the din?
Oh, what would be the din?
You'd say putter.
What is the
so
din?
Then let it say so. Nifluk v'nisli b'didol. Keep in the same case that he didn't, that he picked it up, not that he dragged it. And it should have said, when is he going to be chayiv for stealing if he was walking? Because if he's walking, then all the walking is not part of the Chol Shabbos until the last step. Aval zorik putter. But zorik would have been putter because it is kamei bid Rabbi, because as soon as he picked it up, that's the beginning of the Chol Shabbos and it's considered simultaneous. The Gemara says, the Gemara is going to leave with this last teretz, but and it could have said that. I wanted to tell you this over here. This is like you wanted to tell you. You could have said that case also. It could have said that case of picking it up and throwing it. Would also have been putter because Rabban is right. And it's all considered simultaneous. But why does it say a case of Megara B'Yosei? That's another case where it's going to be also a case which is going to be putter. It's considered simultaneous. There's a chiddush over there. I would have thought when you drag something out, you shouldn't be high for Shabbos because that's not the normal way. Stealing, you stole it, but you took it out of the rishus and you're on it, so you're chayiv for stealing. But you would think that you're not chayiv for Shabbos because it's not the normal way of carrying. Shabbos, in order to be chayiv for Shabbos, the chilul Shabbos is only if you do it in the normal way. Here, it's not the normal way to drag something out. You pick it up.
We saying this is the way they did in the Mishkan? Or?
Yeah, it's not the normal way. If you have the most something which is light, like full purse, and you'll be dragging it on the floor, that's not normal. So it wants to tell you a side chiddush that's also considered normal. But the Gemara says, is that true? That it's a chiddush that it's considered a normal way? If it's a big package, then it's surely chayiv. That's the normal way of carrying. You have a big bag, so you don't pick it up, it's too heavy, so you drag it. So that's not a chiddush that you chayiv for Shabbos. And if it's a small purse, then taka, it's not the derech, and there's no kamash money. Taka shouldn't be chayiv for Shabbos. If somebody's going to drag out something which is not the derech to drag, you just pick it up. Ella b'mitzi, it's talking about something in between. There's something in between that sometimes people would pick it up, sometimes they might drag it. So that is a chiddush. That's the Brisa means to say that there sometimes is a chiddush that you chayiv for Shabbos by dragging also. And end of that sugya more or less. We could put 2 dots over here if you want.
Before the daf,
For the afke, right? So that we finished explaining, we had the Yisod of Rabbanan. That's what we learned this new Yisod today, that if you did something of Chil Shabbos and Zakir Tzorach HaNocha, so then you would be potter for Geneva, for some kind of monetary thing that happened in between, because the whole thing is considered one big Chil Shabbos. Not as a problem, just as it seems to be like a technicality in the whole issue we spoke about. That there was a case of Magarvio, so we're going now in the Sefer, the case where he was dragging it out. So we said the Resha of Magbia over there says that you're chayiv. Some cases we put over there also with this new Yisod of Rabbi Yobin. And I want to tell you chiddush of dragging also is chayiv v'chol Shabbos. Now we're going to go in the case of the Sefer that dragging is considered a case that it came simultaneous. You had a bag, some kind of mediocre bag, not too light, not too heavy. Surely if it was heavy and it's there to carry it out, to drag it out, he dragged it out, and it comes out that the Chil Shabbos and the Geneva happened simultaneously. That the Geneva didn't happen in the courtyard of the party being because he didn't pick it up. He just dragged it. So he's not shicha. The shicha of dragging something is not pulling. It's not going in the other person's domain.
It could be a
and even if
it's a normal way, then why would that not make?
Until he got it out of domain, dragged it being robbed. So Chil Shabbos and the Geneva happens simultaneously. That's the Brisa. Because both of them come simultaneously. Simple. If he throws it out, then that was. Okay, but right now he did a Chil Shabbos and he stole it. So that also, that's what the Gemara said, that if he threw it out also, it would be simultaneous and it'd be potter because it came simultaneous. Again, all these cases of potter, I think if the wallet is still there, of course you have the wallet back. The case is that you come to him, you got to pay. He stole something, you got to pay for it. So then we talk about that. It came at the same time as the Chil Shabbos potter. So now the Gemara wants to know back. We're forgetting. I think more or less we don't have to go back. We finished everything, and now there's a technical problem over here. How could it be by dragging out something, this bag that he dragged out and he stole and it was Chal Shabbos at the same time? Something's wrong. To where did he take it out? It means what's outside of the street? What kind of street is there? You have the Rishus Yachid, the domain of the one being robbed, and he took it out. What does out mean? What's on the other side of the fence? The Gemara thinks at this point that the Kinyan Mashiach, this Kinyan, we have two Kinyanim here. One is Hagbah, to pick something up. That's fine. That you can make, you could steal, you could acquire something by picking it up, and also by dragging it. Now, here the Gemara thinks that the drag in Rishus Rabim is not going to be a Kinyan. If you'd be in a public domain and you would drag something, you made Mashiach, you're not Kona. You're not Kona. The Gemara's this is going to be, we'll get it in a couple of lines, we'll see it's not so simple. But here the Gemara thinks that you're not Kona with Mashiach in Rishus Rabim. So therefore the Gemara doesn't understand what's the case over here, that by dragging it out from the private domain to the public domain, that you get a case of Chil Shabbos and also stealing. If it's a Rishus Harabim, so it's true. That would be the case of Shabbos. Different from a private domain to public domain, the Chayiv for Shabbos. But it wouldn't be Geneva because the Gemara thinks that's not a way to become something. If you made a Mashicha, you drag something, you pulled something in a public domain, it's not a way to acquire something. So you wouldn't be Chayiv for Geneva. The guy didn't steal. Till he picks it
Just
up.
like the Rishus Yachid.
What do you mean? Right. Just
didn't mean
right. It was just Yachid of the other party. If I did a Mashiach in somebody else's domain, it's not a Kinyan. And the more thinks that also, it's just a Rabbi also. It has to be someplace that the more is going to say, Rashi says, a simta, a quiet place is not a Rishus Yachid, not a place which is hustling, bustling, a Rishus Rabbi, a lot of people over there, that's not considered pulling it into your domain. You don't have to take it, pulling it only goes into your domain, mamish, but the fact that you pulled it, so you show some kind of ownership by doing it. It's a place which is too much busy. It's a very busy, like Rishus Harabim, that's not a place to be honest. So the Gemara said first problem, to where did he take it out? If you took out the Rishus Harabim, that's true, that would be a case of Chilul Shabbos, but it wouldn't be a case of Geneva. If you took it out, there's a Rishus Yachid on the other side, means the quiet place. So then, yeah, maybe he's the neighbor, maybe he's a neighbor, he's stealing from his neighbor. So he dragged it out from his neighbor's domain to his domain. That's very nice, he stole, but he didn't do Chilul Shabbos, because taking from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid is not Chayiv for Shabbos. It's a Geneva Ika, but there's a Shabbos Leka. So give me a case that take by dragging it out to the outside, Shabbos and Geneva come simultaneously. What's the case? If it's a Rishus Yachid, it's only Shabbos. If it's a Rishus Yachid, it's only Geneva. So we'll get a case that's called Sidi Rishus Harabim, is called like the sidewalk, something like that, a place which is considered off to the side, and the Gemara thinks there's something in between. What's that?
No, it's okay. The side of the Rishus.
The side of, and the Gemara is going to try to find that's going to be something in between. It's not a Rishus Yachid, it's not a Rishus Harabim. The Gemara is going to trying that's going to be enough to be Chayiv for Chilul Shabbos, but it's not enough, and it's also enough to make a Kinyan also. But the Gemara says we don't know such a thing. Uchaman. There's no such middle opinion. It's a Geneva Leka. Back to the same thing. There's a machlokas between Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer. If Sidi Rishus Rabim is considered Rishus Rabim or not. The Sidi Rishus Rabim of the Gemara's time would be like you have by posts. You have that over there by the Patriarch over there, Armenian Patriarch Street, when you're going out to Shah Yafo. So you have posts all along. And that stops that the car shouldn't go where the people are. That's called Sidi Rishus Harabim. Is that considered Rishus Harabim or not? If the street will be Rishus Harabim. So according to Rabbi Lezer, he holds that Sidi Rishus Harabim is Rishus Harabim. And back to the same kasha. Then this is Shabbos Ika, it's a Geneva Leka. That it would not be considered a place where you could steal because it's considered Rishus Harabim. It's not considered a place to make a kinyan. This Mashiach that you made in this Sidi Rishus Harabim is like doing it in Rishus Harabim. Ikra Abana Dami Sidi Rishus Harabim Lav Kishus Harabim Damu. So then there's no Issa Shabbos. It's a Geneva Ika. It's a Shabbos Leka. So the Gemara doesn't see what do you gain. What are you gaining with saying Sidi Rishus Harabim? There's a machlokus about it if it's Rishus Harabim or not. So they didn't gain anything. The Olam Kirei Rabbi Lezer. That the Sidi Rishus Harabim is Kishus Harabim. The Chiyam Rabbi Lezer Sidi Rishus Harabim Kishus Harabim Damu. Ani mi le'inyan chiyuva the Shabbos. There's in the Dachi Rabim v'ayle lahasam. Aval inyan mikna kani. My timer dalo shchichi Rabim. That's the end of that first terrace. Terrace is that there is a difference. Even Rabbi Lezer that says that Sidi Rishus Harabim is considered Rishus Harabim. That's only as far as Rishus Harabim goes. And the reason is because sometimes people do push into there and walk. Means that it's not made for the main traffic. But sometimes when there's not enough room, so then people do go off to the side.
Yeah, the
overflow. And that's enough to be Chayiv for Shabbos. But as far as Kinyan, since it's mostly a quiet place, that's enough to be able to make a Kinyan. And Lo Shchichi Rabim is not so busy over there, and therefore it is quiet enough to be able to make a Mashiach. So we found a case that by pulling it out from the domain of the one being robbed to outside, to the Sidi Rishus Harabim, it's enough to be Chayiv for Shabbos, the way Rabbi Lezer holds, because it's considered Rishus Harabim Lagabi that. And it's also enough to make a Geneva because it's quiet enough that it should be able to make a Kinyan.
So really, when he says it's like Rishus Harabim, he means in terms of the
Shabbos, only a Shabbos, right? That's terrace number one. Terrace number two. That the case could be that the reason why he's Chayiv for Geneva, we're saying now it's Rishus Harabim. Outside is Rishus Harabim. According to Rav Ashi's terrace number two, that it was outside in Rishus Harabim, and therefore it's Chayiv for Shabbos. And the kasha was, so there's no Geneva over there because it wasn't Mashiach. The answer is that he didn't do Mashiach. It wasn't going to be a king of Mashiach, but it was that again came into his hand. That he took it, he pulled it out of the private domain into his hand.
What's
Siref is that something when you put something close to something else, that's called to be mitzaref. I don't know the English word. Maybe somebody has it in an art scroll that he put close. He put his hand right next to the border of coming out into Rishus Harabim. It was Rishus Harabim outside, but he put his hand over there in order to receive the stolen goods. One hand, he pulled it into the other hand. He pulled it into his hand. So the reason why he's Kohen is not because of Mashiach. The reason why he's Kohen is because it's in his hand. So I have a case that he can do Chil Shabbos and also Gneva simultaneously. As Kedirava. Now Rashi, this is a gears of Rashi. He has problems with it. Just read the Gemara. Kedirava Dama Rava Yado Shaladam Chashivu Lo Karba Alaba. This is a Gemara we had in Shabbos. It says in the side Shabbos Avhei. Over there, it's not talking about Gneva. Over there, it's talking about Shabbos. That is a special din that you only chayiv if you put down the object onto a chashuva place. It has to be at least 4 by 4 tefachim. And Rashi says the Gemara is learning out from there to Kinyanim. They're talking about Shabbos, but we're not interested in Shabbos now. He took it out to Rishus Harabim and he put it on the floor. But the Gemara is saying that a hand is enough to be considered a Kinyan. And we're applying Bava's din over there to learn out that is a Kinyan yad, that you could be koneh by putting something in your hand. Taisus has problems with this because there was the comparison from Shabbos to Kinyanim, and also everybody agrees it's such thing as a Kinyan yad. Taisus has problems with this, he has different girsa, but just to read the words of the Gemara is answering a teretz that the case that Shabbos and Gneva come simultaneously is when you dragged it out into his hand. So it's a Rishus Harabim. So he's chayiv for taking out from Rishus Yachad to Rishus Harabim, and he's chayiv for Gneva because he has it in his hand. That's a Kinyan, not a Mashiach.
What was the thing about Mishlosha? I didn't get it.
Within 3 tefachim of the ground. So it's within the ground. He put his hand close down within 3 tefachim of the ground. So, and that's how he received it.
Oh, so it's not the Rishus.
So it's a Rishus. So it's a Rishus Harabim as far as Shabbos. And it's going to be considered a Geneva
because it's Dalit.
Because it's his hand.
It's his hand. Why did? If it were above 3, what happens?
So I think Tais asked the kasha that above 3 also should have been. I think Tais asked the kasha that above 3 should also be the same halacha. But I have to look at it. I didn't have enough time to look at that. So, but I did. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
If he picks it up, I would think not. I would think that if he picked it up and it was just if I put it into his hand, and it also be chayiv. He's standing with Rishus Harabim, and some person puts it into his hand.
What's this in your hand, even in Rishus Harabim?
Yeah, I think it'd be chayiv.
The point is that he's dragging it in a makam patur.
No, he dragged it outside, inside the private domain. Then as soon as by the border, it came into his hand. So he put it into his hand.
So what does the 3 have to do with it?
So I think that's the kasha, but I didn't see it. But that's a nice. It needs to be explained. And now, when the Gemara says that everything we said till now, this last point, where we hold over here, what we just said was Rav Acha's version. But Ravina says differently. That whole kasha is not a kasha. The whole Gemara started off thinking that there's no Mashiach and Rishus Harabim. You have to have these 2 terutzim. The whole from the Gemara we started after these 2 dots over here with Dafke Lahecha, the whole Gemara was based on the assumption that there's no Mashiach and Rishus Harabim. So if you in order to be Chai for Shabbos, it has to be Rishus Harabim outside. Right. In order to be a Geneva, it has to be not a Rishus Harabim. But the Gemara is saying you hold the Yisod is wrong. That it's not true. You could carry something out into Rishus Harabim. That's also enough to be considered a Kinyan. That there is Mashiach and Rishus Harabim. The Gemara opens up a new thing now. That till now the assumption was there's no Mashiach and Rishus Harabim. The Kinyan Mashiach cannot be in Rishus Harabim. And now the Gemara says no. That's what. Where is this? Who's saying this now? Ravina Masni. La'olam daf kilu Rishus Harabim. Rishus Harabim namikana. You could do Mashiach. And this comes to be a machlokes. Could you do Mashiach and Rishus Harabim? Ravina says yes. The source of this machlokes is based on how to learn a Mishnah that it says in Baba Kam over here. Here's a case where somebody was stealing. A guy came, he's stealing somebody's cow, somebody's sheep, whatever it is, and he's dragging it, and the cow died. He's stealing it. Someone came to steal somebody else's cow, and he died. And now we caught him, and we know he died, and now we want him to pay. We want him to pay for it. He stole it, then it paid, and died. If it died before he stole it, so then it's the loss of the owner. Yeah. If it died after he stole it, so then it's the loss of the gunner. You got to pay. You stole it, and then it died. That's your problem. So here it says, when is he going? If he was pulling out the cow to steal it, umeis, and it died before he got out, he didn't pick up the cow. He's pulling the cow. So he didn't steal, even though he wanted to steal, but he didn't actually steal till he gets out. So if it died before he got out, butter, the gun is butter because he didn't steal it yet. He tells the owner, it's true, I wanted to steal it, but your bad luck that it died before I stole it. So you're lost. But if he did pick it up, it would have been a sheep or something like that in a way that he was able to pick it up. So he stole it right away. And then it died. So then it's the gunner's problem. Or if he took it out of the Rishus Bailam, these words, the words would have sounded like he got it out. If he got it out and then it died, umeis then chayiv because it died in the domain of the ganav. Everything's good. But the Gemara has a diak over here. There's two ways how you could. What's the word to be medayik? How do you translate medayik?
In particular, I don't know.
To derive something. You could derive something. You're right, but to derive something from a nuance in the Resha or to derive something from the nuance in the Sefer. Thank you very much. Thank
Pleasure.
you. The Brisa says the only case where you could be say potter is if it died in the domain of the owner. That before the Ganav got it out, it died. That sounds time of the mace which is by them. The only case that the Tana could figure out to say that he's potter, the Ganav is potter because it died in the domain is if it's in the domain. But if he would have gotten it out, and Rashi says the Gemara's diak is if you got it out to any place what's outside, even if it's outside of Rishus Rabin, if you got it out, you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because the Ganav is going with Mashiach, even if outside is a Rishus Rabin. It doesn't say openly Rishus Rabin. It just says that you only put there inside the private domain, inside the Rishus Bailam. So you could be medayik that if he would have gotten it out of the Rishus of the Bailam, he would be chayiv. Why are you chayiv? The Ganav is chayiv. Why is the Ganav chayiv? Because he acquired it. What if outside is the Rishus Rabin? It's mashma. That's also. So Ravina thinks that the ratio of the Brisa is mashma that you could be calling Mashiach even in the Rishus Rabin. But Ravacha, Daik we say, for the other way to learn to be Daik is the end of the Brisa. What does it say? Mishnah. I'm not sure if it has the gears over here, Rishus Bailam, but it says Hotza Dumya de Hagbah. It says if you picked it up or if you took it out, and the diak is going to be Hotza Dumya de Hagbah. Ma Hagbah and the Asilu Shusei, Afotza Nami the Asilu Shusei. That when Hagbah means that he picked it up, that means that it became into his domain. The fact he picked it up is now he's holding it. That's mamash a case of being a good Kenyan. So maybe also as long as he came to your Rishus, and the Gemara understands that being a Rishus Rabbim is not taking into your Rishus. So according to that diak, we would say that Mashiach does not work in Rishus Rabbim. The Ravacha Kasha Reisha Levina Kasha say first if they are two diukim, so it's a contradiction within the Mishnah. So how can anybody be medayik anything? According to each opinion, the other part of the Mishnah is mashma against him. The Gemara says each one of these amorim can push off the diak of the other part of the Mishnah. Even though it says that he's potter as long as it's inside the domain of the one being robbed. Anything that don't make a diak that if he would have taken out to Rishus Harabim, it would have been chayiv. As long as it didn't come into his own Rishus. If it's only in Rishus Rabim outside, that's also called Rishus Bailam. Don't take it literally inside the fence of the Ganav. As long as it didn't come into the Rishus of the Ganav, it's still called Rishus Bailam. So don't just mean literally got it out of the fence. It could be got it out of the fence, but if outside of the fence is Rishus Rabim, it's also still called Rishus Bailam. So you can't be like that. And say for Levina Lokasha, so we're not so impressed with the diak that it says that it's dafka if he got it into his own rishus to be not a rishus rabbim. Even to rishus rabbim is also considered a good mashiach. So that's it. The diak either way. The diak seems to be a very fine diak, but there's machlokas here if you can do mashiach in a rishus rabbim. And just the one point of halacha, even though it doesn't sound in Gemara doesn't sound like that, and the Gemara puts together all the din of kinyanim together with Geneva, but it happens to be maybe all Gemara is only talking about Geneva. As far as Kinyanim, we call that you only can do Mashiach not in a Rishus Rabbim. You can't do Mashiach in a Rishus Rabbim. If you want to make a deal with somebody and you want to buy something, everyone's kosher people and making a sale and a transaction, so then Mashiach is not going to Rishus Rabbim. But as far as stealing, because Agmar is talking about stealing, over there we hold that Mashiach is chayiv also in Rishus Rabbim. If he would have made a Ganav, would have taken something into Rishus Rabbim, with a Mashiach, it is considered, like Ravina over here. Ravina is the one who says that Mashiach is going to Rishus Rabbim as far as Geneva goes. Here it goes that Ravina says, well, Rishus Rabbim Namikana, this Ravina is as far as Geneva, but as far as Kinyanim, a regular transaction between a buyer and a seller, then Mashiach is not going to Rishus Rabbim. I just had the halacha, I just summed up the halacha.
No, but for what kind of an item?
Something, okay, that's a different point. That
no, I mean, if you buy a cow, don't you pull the cow and then it's yours?
So how about in Rishus Rabbim? Is it good enough to pull it in Rishus Rabbim? Here it says for sure you can't do Mashiach in the domain of the seller.
Yeah, so how do you buy the cow?
So you get to a place which is not a Rishus Rabbim until you get to a
you have to pull it into
a place which is a quiet place. And also they have this way of doing Hagbah also. If you get it on to walk on top of it, to walk on a elevated platform, you also got it up. That's like Hagbah also. But I don't know these things. I don't know well enough. But But Mashiach is not Kohen
In
and
other words,
Rishus
the cow
Hashanah.
store usually would have been a stall that would have been a Rishus Yachid or something, and then you pull it.
Yeah, but it could be that outside the stall where they have the cow sales, there's not a mamash big Rishus Hashanah. It's like side street and stuff like that. So over there, Mashiach would help. It has to be a quiet
Oh,
place.
it's a side street.
A symptom. But if we'll be back right into the highway, then you're not going to pulling the cow into the highway.
What? It's a private domain. And each one is renting a room in that private domain.
What is that?
It's private domain, it's private house.
Yeah.
And there are 2 rooms. Each one is renting a room. So
So you take from his room to your room. Yeah, then he brought into your house. That's
Yeah.
also Kona. Yeah. That's
We
not
were saying
Mashiach.
that's
That's
Kohen,
the,
but the Shabbos is butter.
yes. But that's a case where you put it into your house. So bringing it to your house is also a kinyan. That's not only Mashiach and Agboah. Bringing something into your domain is another way to be Kona. That's called Chatzah. There's another kinyan. We'll get to that in the different sectors where it's more about the acquisitions, to pick it up, to pull it, to bring it into your courtyard. All those things are Kona. Yes, everybody. Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Dr.
much.
Fine, Mamish, we're inspired each time.
How come?
It's
how
now
come Friday has
from
to
3
be
o'clock to
here?
4 o'clock in the morning. That's
How come Friday has to be?
Have a good Shabbos.
have a good shot.
Is there other reasons other than low plug?
That's part of the reason, but the Venus Manim is more utilized if it starts earlier,
Okay.
if that's okay with everybody. Thank you, Avnis, and have a good Shabbos. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It means grilling in the sun. That's the difference from the
How's that grilling in the sun?
because the sun hits our Hatzer by 11. So if I grill,
Oh, grilling.
I'm in the shade. So then the question was, do I come or not? But I think it was better that I came. It was a good day.
Hope you'll be cool and thank you.
The grilling